Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's featured Reddit stories are from Entitled Parents. Story 1 is by No Pomegranate 4794. A mom got mad at me because I wouldn't let her kid play with an expensive prop. I'm just done with entitled parents raising the future entitled sect of the next generation. I work in entertainment, and one of the shows I'm in offers backstage tours. I was walking around when I passed by a group taking a tour. At that moment, they were looking at some of our props, including one of the ones I used during the show. That prop costs roughly around $4,000, and that's considered one of the cheaper props we have. I saw a kid eyeing my prop, and his mom said, "Yeah, you can touch it and hold it." I quickly step forward and go, "Excuse me, I'm sorry, but please don't touch any of the props." Entitled mom, "But I promised my son he could." Me, "I'm sorry, but these are very expensive and delicate." Entitled mom emphasizes heavily, "But I promised my son." I don't deal well with confrontation, so I kind of just stood there smiling with pleading eyes, found the tour guide, who thankfully noticed that I was not having a pleasant conversation, and stepped in. She threw a big stink about her kid not being able to play. If you're at a backstage tour, your kid does not get to play. It's not a play space. It's a backstage area for TV shows or something. It's not a place your kid gets to go and play. Our next story is by Schizophrenic Mom. My dad showed up an hour early, then stood me up on our actual lunchtime. This might be a small thing, but it made me so frustrated that I, 39 female, actually cried. There was a history of him not respecting my time and prioritizing social events with his crew of varyingly questionable buddies instead of time with me and my brother. Dad and his significant other were coming for a coffee and a bite to eat on Saturday at noon. Instead of arriving more or less on time like a normal human, he rolled up almost an entire hour before at 11:10. He rang the doorbell once. I was out of earshot in the basement, as was my husband. He was in the shower, and we were not expecting people for 50 darn minutes. Dad did not call or indicate that he had been at our place at all. They proceeded to leave and go shopping. At 12, they rang us from the shops. Instead of coming back to our house at the actual time of our social call, they tried to call up to see if we were awake yet. At that exact moment, our plumber, a friendly neighbor, had dropped by to discuss our small bathroom renovation. Friendly plumber was in for 15 minutes. I rang up my dad immediately after the friendly plumber left, as I expected Dad was just letting us know he was a little delayed. Instead, he had turned back. He was 15 minutes into his hour drive back home and didn't want to turn the car around to have coffee or lunch because he had food in the car and had other things to do on that day. It was 12:15 and he was supposed to be at our house at 12. A catastrophic delay, certainly. Meanwhile, my husband had baked bread, and I had prepared the house for guests in the middle of a renovation. I just feel disrespected, disregarded, and right at the bottom of his list of priorities. And insulted. Instead of, "Sorry we were early," it's, "You should turn your doorbell volume up," and "We assumed you were sleeping." Instead of delaying his schedule by 30 minutes so he could drive back and have the coffee or lunch we had prepared, it's, "I have other things to do today." Please tell me I'm not the crazy one. Well, there you go, OP. You're not the crazy one. Your dad is crazy and a little entitled. My first thought with this is maybe this had something to do with daylight savings time. But there's no indication of that at all in here. Our next story today is by Blue Canary 434. Karen's Train Freakout. I'm typing this on the train since it just happened. It's early morning and everyone is extremely tired. Several people are sleeping. The train is severely packed and I'm under the impression that there's not a single seat left. So here I am listening to music when all of a sudden this lady and her son come in with the conductor in tow holding their stuff. Then she disappears from view. Then she comes back. Then she goes up and down looking for a seat. When this doesn't happen, she goes and talks with the other conductor and the conversation goes as follows. Karen, where is a seat? I can't believe me and my son have to stand while other people get to be lazy. Conductor, I'm sure we can find something. Let my colleague help you. I'm checking tickets right now. Karen, he has been no help at all. I need you to get me a seat now. Conductor, Whoa, ma'am, can you please calm down? At this point, a guitar solo came on, so I missed a bit of the conversation, but I paused it a few minutes later so I could hear the end of the conversation. While the guitar solo was on, I could hear Karen yelling, and at this point a majority of the sleeping people had woken up. I heard this as she was following the ticket-checking conductor, still yelling. Karen, how dare I be subjected to this? I've been standing for so long. A random passenger offered her a seat, but she declined, saying, I need 2 seats. For me and my son. Conductor, I need you to calm down. I'm sure someone would give up their seat, but I need you to wait until I check their tickets. Karen, but I need help now. The poor conductor was clearly getting tired of her antics, so he asked her for her ticket. Conductor, may I please see your ticket, madam? Karen, it's on my phone. Let me get it. This ticket is invalid. Karen, what? Then he escorted her away. Somehow she made it to our destination, where I actually managed to see her again. She was letting her child roam around the station while crawling, and actually let him get stomped on. Truly an abomination of a parent, and I hope the child is okay. You can pretty much be guaranteed he won't be okay in the future. Entitled parents like this, they don't raise children that behave very well. Our last story today is by Tasing Lamam. My daughter's father sent a priest to harass me. I had no intentions to do a new post, but today absolutely took the cake. To those who don't know, my daughter, who's 6, was born from a one-night stand with Jeff. We were never romantically involved. It was a simple one-night stand, and we did use contraceptives, but they failed. It happens. A few months ago, Jeff went full psycho and tried to convince me to leave my daughter with him so she could serve as a replacement child for his wife, who recently lost their infant daughter. I refused, and right now we're in the middle of some legal issues. Now, for today. I thankfully didn't deal with Jeff. Instead, he sent a priest to harass me at work. I'm going to be very blunt. I am completely detached from religion. I'm not an atheist, just don't really like the idea of the Catholic Church. That's the leading religion in my home country. I respect it, and most of my family is Catholic, so I have a detached respect for church officials. Today I was doing some paperwork when I got a call about a priest asking for me. I didn't have any meetings scheduled, and a lot of times we get visits from clergy asking for donations or participation in events, so I figured that was it. I told the secretary to let him in, and things at first seemed rather polite. Shake hands, asking how things were, the usual chit-chat. Then the priest began talking about how it had come to his attention that I was a single woman with a child, and that apparently I lived a life of debauchery and hate. His words. I was taken aback and agreed I was a single mother, but I didn't see how I lived in debauchery and hate. The priest then went on about how he knew my daughter is prohibited from spending time with her father, and that I'm constantly sleeping around with men instead of living a godly life. How he was worried and thought it would be best if I considered giving my daughter a chance to live with a proper family rather than see me sell myself. Angry was an understatement. I did keep it civil simply because I was at work and had no intentions of screaming to a religious man at work. I simply told him that my daughter was fine with me, she lived a safe and happy life, my personal affairs were my own, and that I had no intentions of sending her to another household. I told him that if there was nothing else, he should probably leave as I had other things to attend to. He then showed his hand, and that's how I knew it was Jeff's doing. The priest told me he didn't think my daughter would be a happy child with me, but her father was well respected in his church, and he knew he would raise a proper Christian lady. At that, I laughed and simply said, no. I once again recommended he leave, and if he didn't, I would be calling security. He left saying he would try to speak to me again when I'm not being hysterical. I told my secretary and our security team not to let him into my office again, and I called my lawyer. I don't have audio, but we do have security feed from him walking into my office. Thank you again to everyone sending wishes in my previous post. We are still working on that move, but school is back and she's loving it. We still have the temporary restraining order against Jeff and his wife, and school officials know it. It's unbelievable that a church official would meddle in somebody's life in this way. Came in and tried to tell you that you should send your daughter to live with your ex and his wife. When the priest refers to her as being hysterical, that's one of the things that they have on really old lists from like the 1920s. And they have all these different treatments and like methods of removing the hysteria from them. I'm not surprised that they're still using some archaic language to act like you shouldn't be mad at them for this. You have 100% the right to be very angry that he came to your workplace and told you you should leave your daughter with your ex. This guy has no right to meddle in your lives. And I don't know if Jeff put him up to it and encouraged him to go talk to you, which would be scummy, or if he just chose to do it on his own, which would also be pretty scummy. Our stories for today have come to a close. Until we meet again, have a wonderful day.